Halasima. I'm a producer, editor, shooter, and I make videos. I was discovered as a dancer at a dance competition, and then while I was acting is when I started hanging out with all the shooters and all those people, and just switched behind the scenes. I always wanted to be a part of it. My hero growing up was George Lucas, and Steven Spielberg, and Ridley Scott, and Tony Scott. I do this stuff because I like to express and I like to be creative, and most importantly, I like to tell stories. I'm a storyteller. There's a lot more subtleties in film than there are in theater. In theater, it's all about trying to express yourself to a huge audience that's sitting right in front. The audience is eventually bigger in film, but when you're actually producing it, you're just kind of there with just a small group of people. So it's usually not that horrible. But I would say the biggest difference for me, honestly, is like stage is all about projecting. It's all about projection. It's all about remembering, you know, a 40-page script for an entire night. Where in film, you get a 40-page script, but you memorize 2 paragraphs. Get that shot done and move on. So it's not half as bad. At the same time, a lot of stage actors have a hard time moving over to film because it's hard to tone down the acting. What looks great on stage will look like overacting on film a lot of times. And so it's a hard transition. It's a real hard transition. I only know because I did it. I grew up that way. Okay, editing. When I'm editing at my absolute fastest, like just flying without, like to the point where I'm just like, wow, look how fast I went. I'm going at about an hour a minute, which means what you see on TV took me an hour for every minute that you watch. 30-minute show, then at my absolute fastest, it took me 30 hours to do that. But like 30 hours editing total on that. But usually it's about 2 hours a minute. And that's only editing, because shooting takes forever. Pre-production takes forever. Yeah, documentary filmmaking is very different than most like narrative filmmaking. Narrative films are like movies that you see, Hollywood movies, typical Hollywood. Documentaries usually, I transitioned into that pretty well because I worked for NBC for a long time. So it was really easy for me to go from news to documentary. Because what you usually do is you go out to shoot your story with an idea. You don't know what you're going to get, have an idea. So you go out there, you get what you think you can get, and then you rewatch every single thing that's on there. You write down all the notes, everything they said, and then you try to compile a story with an actual story arc, just like in every kind of story. You still try to build your typical story arc out of what you get. And so it can take a long time. The interviews right now, like for instance, I have 40-minute interviews I'm going through it right now. Usually it takes me about 3 hours for every 40-minute interview I go through. Just to come up with all my notes. And then when I'm done with my notes, I do something like what's on that board, where I break it down and try to draw out an entire story. So yeah, you can get a shot of that one. That thing's a beast. That's an episode, because I do mostly music documentaries right now. That's a band that just signed with Interscope Records. We went out and we shot them for 4 days, and we literally had no idea what we were going to get. The client said, do a story on this band, and that was it. So we had to go out there, just shot tons of stuff with them. Did 2 music videos for them, and when we got done, we found the stories. Like I was constantly, when we weren't shooting, talking to people like, hey, so tell me about this. Where'd you guys come from? What are you doing? And all that crap. And then, yeah, and then slowly shaped the story. And then when we got back, me and the producer sat down, went over all our notes, drew out an entire story arc, and then edited. That is a half-hour show, and it took me 4 months. I'm a dancer and a musician, so I usually bend music videos a little easier. But there's no money in it. The lowest amount of money in my industry, I would say, is music videos. And then just above that is documentaries. And then above that, probably narrative films. The most money you make in my industry is if you're in commercials. You can have a really bad cameraman and a really bad director, but if you have a good editor, they can make almost anything good. In Hollywood, if you look at most famous directors, good directors, they usually have their editor with them on all their projects. They find an editor they like, and they'll hang with them. Because the director, his whole job is just to oversee the whole story and how the story is going to be told. And then the editor has to know how to do that. And the difference with editing is there's something called pacing. They pace the story so that it works. And that's, I edited my first thing for KSL and Cairo in Seattle, Washington when I was 13 years old. So I was the host of a kids show. While I worked on that show, like, I was always just, I grew up, I was like a fan of all these directors, and so I was constantly like wanting to be with the editors and wanting to be with the shooters and wanting to do that. And so, yeah, when they felt I was ready for it, they said, why not give it a shot? So I cut something. It was awful. Put it on TV anyway, just because they thought it was cute. The 13-year-old kid cut something. And yeah, that's where I started. So yeah, 20 years. There's a reason why this job can pay really well. And it's because you have to give up a lot. Most editors end up on drugs. Most of them end up with these really hard lives. It's a very, there's a lot of people that pull it off. I'm not going to say everybody's like that, but it's a really hard life. You have to truly love expression and storytelling. Like me and my buddy today, the guy that I'm producing that music show with, he and I both talk about all the time how we kind of wish we didn't have this bug. It's cool, like, you tell people, yeah, I'm a director, and they're like, oh, no way, oh, so cool, and it's like, yeah, I guess, but it's like, it's not glamorous. It beats you up really good. He and I, we had the screening for our TV show. We had like 400 people there. It was kind of like this, like, oh, finally. And it hit, and everybody loved it, and we got all the handshakes, and people are treating us like celebrities, but it was kind of funny because you kind of feel like, yeah, I just murdered myself to do this, so yeah, this just feels good. But when you have that one night when you're on stage and the audience is laughing at everything, your performance shoots through the roof. Suddenly you have adrenaline, you remember all your lines, you want to, like, you know how to turn to the crowd and play off of them, you're just digging it. And then you have those nights when the crowd is just not picking up on anything, and you really hope the night ends. You're like, you get out on that stage, and it's almost annoying that you have those fans there. So, like, I'll edit a music video, and people will watch it, and they're like, wow, they're like, don't you love that song? And all I can think is, I've listened to that song for 8 to 10 hours a day for 2 straight months. It's like, really? Like, really, do you expect me to still love this song? I will shut down the world. I will go away from everybody because for some reason that's not what matters to me. What matters to me is the art. And it's kind of a sick thing. But yeah. Anybody looking to get into the industry, this industry, I'd say the rewards are awesome. Not necessarily the money, but when you put something together that you saw in your head, and it's pretty much what you get to put out on a video, and you get to see people do it, like see people's reactions, it's amazing. It's YouTube. YouTube nowadays lets everybody do something. Everybody puts stuff on YouTube. Yet I still freak out. I did this video for Real Salt Lake, where it's that new chant that they're doing for all the goals. It's called RSL Believe. And, it ran up to 80,000 views, and I was just like, wow, I feel pretty awesome right now. It's a really weird high and a really awesome thing that for some reason, even though you haven't slept for 2 days, you've only been eating Snickers bars and drinking Red Bulls, you love it. The rewards are great, but you gotta be willing to work harder than the next guy. I've never been good at anything in my life. I was just willing to work harder. Competitive. I'm competitive.